Good afternoon, good evening, good day, ladies and gentlemen. I like my music, it's very important to me. I like all formats. CD, LP, MP3, minidisc, cassette, AAC, ILAC, AIFF, WAV, DSD. It's all good, man. I love albums, singles, compilations. It's all good, man. EPs, whatever. I love it all. But there's just a few tracks out there that are like niggled at my mind over the years, and I end up wrestling with them in my mind. Yeah, wrestling, see? Do you get it? Do you get it? Okay, and today's opponent, or opponents, is on these here bootlegs. Now I know what you're thinking. Bootlegs? We are asking for it, mate. Don't buy bootlegs. But back when I purchased these, I didn't know they were bootlegs. And plus, in the mid-90s, and especially 96, 97, these were in highly reputable stores. So I was none the wiser. I didn't know about the Pistols label history with EMI, A&M, and then Virgin Records, and any of that stuff. I was just getting into the band. I'd got a other video I'd talked about. I got a compilation with them, which ended up being their demos on there, with all the other bands that were on that compilation having their original singles on there. So the Pistols got properly swindled on that one. Swindled? Swindled. But yeah, getting to the point, there's a track on here that I got... No, I wouldn't say I have beef with these tracks. It's just I was wrestling with them in my mind for many years, and there was no internet back then, so I couldn't do the research then that I'd be able to find out what it is now that I know. But, so, on here, it's schools or prisons, and on here, it's revolution in their classroom. So yeah, both school-themed. The songs are not bad. They're good songs. I mean, I really loved School of Prisons. I thought it was great. And it does say on here, let buy beware, recording quality suspect. And yes, this does sound very bootleggy, and that's why this song kind of managed to fool me, because it blended in well. But these are Dave Goodman releases. Dave Goodman was a sound guy to the Pistols. He kind of met them in the spring, I think, of 1976. Became a fan. Became their sound guy for their live gigs. And also talked them into doing some demos, because they'd only done demos with Chris Spedding at the time, and he seemed to think he could do a better job. So they began working with him in the summer of 76 and knocked out some demos. And he even tried to do their first single, Nicky in the UK, but it didn't work out. Malcolm McLaren was interfering, and it became very chaotic, and the band just had enough. And I mean, I'd heard that version. It's on the spun bootleg called Nookie, and yeah, it's a mess. So the band scrapped that version with Dave Goodman and ended up getting Chris Thomas in, and the rest is history, because he became their full-time producer and ended up doing all their subsequent recordings. And Dave Goodman was kind of pushed to the side, and maybe he felt it snubbed, I don't know, but he did do one more session with them in January 77. And then, you don't really hear much about Dave Goodman after that, but Spunk Bootleg came out, and maybe there was him feeling, yeah, that they saw after being kind of sidelined. But the band gave him a chance, just didn't work out. I don't think it was anything personal, but hey. So yeah, this is what these are. He ended up releasing these kind of bootleg releases on Dojo Limited, and they were just the demos he recorded plus live stuff. But these two tracks, yeah, they stood out to me, because first of all, when it comes to the credits, I mean, the Pistols are credited on all their own songs: Cook, Jones, Matlock, Rotten. And then there's some covers, Johnny B. Good, Roadrunner, so obviously it's got Richmond and Berry and the people that, wrote those songs. But the Schools of Prisons, it just got Goodman in brackets. Goodman, Pistol Publishing, I don't even see that there. So Dave Goodman wrote that one. And the same with Revolution in the Classroom. Again, that's just Dave Goodman. So I was thinking, well, Dave Goodman wrote these songs. Maybe that's why the Pistols don't acknowledge it anymore. They just didn't think they were very good, and he was just obsessed with schools or something. So I was just curious what these songs were all about. I mean, they were very kind of, they just stood out, and a bit like some sort of enigma with these releases. But there is also one more track on here I forgot to mention that also caught my attention when I saw this on the shelf. So yeah, Revolution in the Classroom, because I'd never seen that anywhere before, but also Here We Go Again, which is ultra rare. Now, listening to that, when that started up, that had that classic Pistol sound, and then Steve Jones started singing, so this is also here just as, yeah, late 77, ultra rare. Well, I don't think it is 77, I think it's more like 78, when Johnny had left the group. And that did eventually get cleared for me many years later when I managed to find a 7-inch single sticking out on the shelf. Because the song was actually a B-side to this, Black Leather. Here We Go Again is there on B-side, and this is Black Leather. So yeah, outtakes from, they didn't make it onto the Great Rock and Roll Swindle, and then this was part of a singles box set that came out in 1980, and they decided to add this on as well. But that got clarified for me many years later. But back to the two Mystery Goodman songs. I had to do research when the internet was available, because back then there was just no way. The Pistols never mentioned these songs, you know. They were in interviews and documentaries and films they've done. They might have talked about, you know, demos and whatever, but they never mentioned these two songs. And so yeah, it boggled my mind for a while. So after doing the research, I actually got to find out that, yeah, these two songs are not performed by the Sex Pistols at all. It's actually a group called the X Pistols that Dave Goodman had formed in 1979. And they were just trying to sound like the Pistols. And allegedly Glenn Malloch even played on a couple of the tracks. But yeah, so I don't know whether the guy was trying to increase sales with these, but he was just he was trying to pull the wool over our eye, basically. And the X Pistols were, well, on the Wikipedia page, it says that the X Pistols were Dave Spires, Alan Lee, Dave Slave, Bryson Graham, and Dave Goodman. And the two songs, Revolution in the Classroom and Schools of Prisons, were actually released on a 7-inch single in the late 70s, and then put on an album in 1992 called Deny, which is quite fitting, really, because also in that year, they were sued by the Sex Pistols and denied any more releases as the X Pistols, because the Pistols didn't appreciate them using their sound, their image, and their name for what they saw as inferior recordings. So yeah, that was interesting. That's because I was waiting, what the heck were the two songs all about? And they are good songs, and the guy imitating Johnny does a good job. It just goes to show how it can fool you. Because when I first heard them, I did think it was the Pistols. But why would you not? You know, he wouldn't think someone would be that unscrupulous that they would do that. And maybe that's why there was a bit of beef there between Dave Goodman and the band in the end. But I mean, the guy even got bootleg versions of two of the demos they did with Chris Spedding as well. And I really like the versions of the Chris Spedding demos on here. They are incorrect pitch. They're slightly faster, but I really like them. And it made me seek out more. And there was only one more that they did with him, and that was Pretty Vacant. And that's why I ended up getting this version. I already had it in my Bootlegs, was the first copy I owned. But I picked this one up, which came out in 96, obviously celebrating the reformation of the Pistols, and it contains Spunk, the bootleg. But also, hey, I don't know if you can see his face, it says plus Spunk and Spedding demos. And so the quality of these are more high fidelity, they're the correct pitch. So yeah, Dave Goodman was put to a stop, and I finally found out what those two songs were about. But yeah, they bumped me for years. Thank goodness the internet came along. Back being a kid in the 90s, if you had like these kind of things, it was very hard to find out some of this stuff. Anyway, continuing with these bootlegs, this was the very first Pistols album I ever bought. After the Anarchy in UK compilation I got, I was trying to find some other stuff, and this just looked interesting because it had two versions of Anarchy in the UK on there. See, one at the top, one at the bottom, and that was my favourite song at the time. This is a very raw, lo-fi recording, and there is actually better versions of it that came out later. I do have one, and it's got that album cleared up here, which is Burton-on-Trent. But that's the kind of weird thing about this CD, because it states in the booklet that it is March 1976. You can just see the top there, March 1976, and it goes into the whole story of how the guys went to play up north. But this says it's from September 76, which has to be accurate because Dave Goodman didn't meet the band until the spring of 76. So he's just talking out of his backside on this one. And then there's another thing, as I mentioned earlier, the two tracks of Anarchy in UK. This track is the exact same track as that one. Okay, so it's not an encore. They didn't try, didn't screw up early and try it again. It's the exact same track. It's been printed on here twice. So, I mean, man. So yeah. What were they smoking? But just to carry on this story of swindle and being swindled, I actually got swindled by Malcolm McLaren as well. So, back to this one, on the inside booklet, you can see it also shows you also available on CD. You've got Kiss the box set. You've got the Great Rock and Roll Swindle at the bottom. But just above that, it says some product. So obviously, I'd be keeping an eye out for all of these because I wanted more. And eventually, yeah, got Kiss and got the Rigor Swindle. I just can't be bothered to dig all that out as well. That's enough here as it is. But here's some product. And when I looked at the back of this, I was like, holy moly! You've got the very name Sex Pistols. You've got From Beyond the Grave, Big Tits Across America, The Complex World of Johnny Rotten, Sex Pistols Will They Play, It's the Queen of Moron, and That Fucking Rotter. I thought these were all new songs, and again must have been outtakes from the Great Rock and Roll Swindle. But no, there's not a single audio track on this. If it is, it's buried behind interviews. Because that's what this is. It's just interviews. So I remember thinking, blimey, you've proper swindled me there, mate. You proper got me here, Malcolm. And how many other people back in the day that bought this thinking it was new tracks? So yeah, that's typical Malcolm McLaren right there. But I don't have any beef with this whatsoever. I appreciate this for what it is. his interviews here, I mean, it's the first time I've got to hear Sid Vicious's voice. It's the first time I've got to hear the whole band, to be fair, back in the day when they were, originally in the band. And, and you've got the infamous Bill Grundy interview, which is obviously the last track from Steve Jones's famous or infamous quote. And now it's some good insight into the band. This is great. Yeah, it's great. But yeah, I got fooled, and a lot of other people got fooled, thinking, it was definitely a ploy. This was definitely a ploy. And we all fell for it. But it's great. It's great. So, yeah, that's all I have for this video. I'm just curious if anything else like this exists, or is it just the Pistols that continue to get swindled with these bootlegs? What I mean is there anything else? Like, do you have a group, favorite group, and there's a demo out there or something, or there's just some bogus track that's made its way on there, claiming it to be the band, and it's not, and turned out that it's some vindictive producer or someone having a laugh, or I don't know. And yeah, if there is, I'd like to know. So yeah, let me know. And that's gonna do it on this video. So I'll catch you in another one.